back to, there we go. Well.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Feminine Force. I'm here actually from my holidays in Salou, as you can see in my hotel room. And we're trying to get the tech working from my phone. And sorry about the video, didn't work there for some reason. So we're delighted to have your company, and it's wonderful that we can. I'm just saying how amazing technology is that we can do this, all over the world, changing locations and everything. So we're delighted to have your company again from wherever you're watching us. And I know loads of Irish people are on their holidays all over the world now. They're in Spain and Greece and Turkey and everywhere like that. So I hope you're all having a great time. And it's funny that we have the sun now, Lisa, for a change.
Yes.
You're in the
I've
dark
got the fire in the background.
Which is so different, isn't it? Yeah, that's amazing, the different hemispheres. We're covering the globe here. So tonight this morning here, we'd just love to talk about maybe moving on, like all our conversations kind of are always inspired from the previous one. So we love this kind of emergent conversation an inquiry that we're actively on and including you in as the audience and participating also. So we'd love to talk about, we talked about the legacy, and I was talking about when my parents passed away and the experience of that, and the experience of the characteristics that you inherit as your legacy, and also the traits and the characteristics that were kind of negative and that were from the unconscious conditioning that hadn't been integrated in their lifetime, that's inherited to us to integrate and to become aware of. And that phrase around the sins of the father passed on to the son is exactly that, and that's what that means. And it's funny, in the book that I was reading, actually, I shared on Facebook there as well, it came up in that as well, the sins of the father passed on. And they talked about, how we inquire into that ourselves, because, what that is really when we're unaware of the patterns, the negative patterns in our own system and in our psychology that we haven't become aware of. That's our kind of shadow selves that can show up in our lives. And that can also show up in, I suppose, with addictions. And addictions, not so much even if you could have an addictive nature yourself, but you could also be enabling addictions within relationships. So, we'd like to, like Lisa had a great idea to talk about then, let's focus on one particular scenario that women might be dealing with, which would be gambling, and how that comes, I suppose we're not in all of our conversation shaming anyone. We're trying to open up the conversation so that we can bring light into those dark areas, to bring understanding and awareness into the traits, so that we can become empowered then, because we've more awareness, then we become more empowered in our lives. So we'd love to kind of look into how, to recognize, Lisa, in your own kind of life and your own experience of kind of patterns that might have been in your family, that how would you feel these patterns show up, and how do you feel, is it something in that maybe women are denying and can't really fully become empowered in themselves when they're unaware of this in their family tree, we'll say. I just wonder, could you kind of illuminate that a little bit for ourselves, and for people who don't have experience? For myself, I don't have experience of that in my family, so I'm kind of unaware of that. But it'd be really interesting for you to share with, I suppose, women that might have that in their family, and how they could start to recognize it, and how they could become empowered around that in themselves. Please.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about this. This is something that I've been, my own journey has taken me on a journey with addiction, like first with alcoholism and then with gambling. And I've just seen how certain patterns of behavior that are unconscious in me are also unconscious in my ancestors. And I've watched how really similar patterns have played out in my mum's generation and before that. And it's really hit me lately how there are certain things that women don't do when they should be doing things. And often what's holding them back is this unconscious intergenerational pattern that's coming through. And I really wanted to share this. I really, like you said, Carolyn, this is not because of any judgment or shame, but it's like if we have these conversations, we can empower other women. And I really wish that there were things that I had done on my journey, because when you are in relationship with somebody that gambles, it's a horrible feeling. And I think you actually shared a post the other day, Carolyn, where you said, really it's our capacity to be able to share our story as honestly and as candidly as possible to really help other women, I think is really important, and practical help for people that are going through certain things. And we can't know unless other people share their journey as well. So I would love people to comment if you had similar experiences. But I wanted to share about my story because in this journey with a partner who gambled, what I noticed was the patterns in me that were codependent patterns. So patterns of like, I trust him. I don't want him to think that I don't trust him. So I don't, and these were the thoughts that were going on in my mind. So my intuition was going, you need to get a separate bank account. You need to say this, you need to do that. But there was a part of me that was holding back and wasn't actually taking action, like way back when I should have taken action. And the reason was because this unconscious pattern of, and it may not be as much with younger generations, I don't know, but I know my generation and older, there's this, that the male, how you put them on a pedestal, and it's such an unconscious thing. Like it's almost like you're not even aware that you're doing it. And I just really want to shine a light on this because with my expanded awareness, like after I've grown and I've looked back on that relationship, the things that I can see now that I think are really key to start talking about. It's like if you have a feeling that there's something going on, and I can totally describe to you the energetic feeling of being in a relationship with a gambler. So what will happen is you're not quite sure, and you possibly even gaslighted because they will share a little bit with you. And so you think they're being completely honest, but there's a whole lot of stuff that's not being shared. And that you sort of will doubt yourself, you'll second guess yourself. But the energy of living with a gambler, you can feel it. It's like energy is just being sucked out of you. Like it's almost like you can feel this, almost an energetic hemorrhaging. So it's really interesting, even though you might not be able to see it and you may not be sure logically, if you tune into your body, you will feel that there's something happening energetically that makes you feel like you're being sucked from. And it's a feeling of helplessness and powerlessness. Now, what I didn't do back then was actually really pay attention to that and act at the time. I would have discussions, but then there was that part of me, that unconscious part of me that was like, oh, if you're in a relationship, you need to work together, you need to trust, like all of this conditioned thinking. But the truth is that with those particular sorts of behaviors, really, you can't trust a person when they're operating from that part of themselves. And that's not to say that they're not completely trustworthy, but in those areas, they're not trustworthy. And this is where, for me, I needed to learn to be self-sovereign and self-caring. And had I fully paid attention to the feeling in my body and gone, there's something wrong here, I need to protect myself, which doesn't mean that I don't love that person, but it means that this is the right thing to do in this situation. Mm-hmm. And those really practical, really direct actions that sometimes women hold back on taking because they want to be loving and they want to be loved. They don't want to risk their security. They don't want their partner to leave them. Like all of those reasons that we're held in check. It's almost like we're held in a type of a cage, really. We just don't quite take those actions that our body is telling us to take for all those fears. So I really wanted to start talking about this because I think this conversation, bringing people's awareness to the fact that you may not want to take that next step. You may feel bad about creating another bank account. However, they're exactly the things you need to do if you've got any suspicion that this is happening, because that otherwise you're just abandoning yourself. And that, I wish someone had brought my awareness to that a long time ago. So those sorts of things, like just feeling that feeling in your body, because you can feel it energetically when something's not right. And it's really paying attention to that and really honoring that and really being there for yourself. And it's not selfish, it's actually self-preserving.
That's amazing, Lisa. Thank you so much for being brave enough to share that as well, because it's hard, it is hard. And even for myself, post during the week, you kind of say to yourself, well, I share this, but I'm not. And you say, it's the silence is the most damaging. That's the control, isn't it? That's the control, and once you open up the conversation, you're starting to step into your power. So it's like as if it's like a collective agreement. Let's not talk about things. And then they'll always, because it's this denial of our feelings, and the emotional work is so massively important. And you often say that, the bridge, because really what we're doing is we're denying what life is informing us of. It's telling us from our environment what is happening. Like you often say, this is, it's giving us the information, but we're denying that as being true. Right. We're denying our reality. We're denying that. We're sticking our head in the sand, and we're denying our reality. So it's painful to sit in reality of knowing what's actually happening. That's number one. So what happens then is people want to avoid that, and they want to move away, and they distract themselves instead of actually realizing what's happening. And how, so because when we realize actually what's happening in reality, then we know we have to make some kind of action and take that action, those steps to move. And
not stop taking the action, right? So it's like, that was what I had to learn, was like, you don't just do a little bit and think, oh yeah, I've dealt with this, because and we all know when we deal with things just a little bit, it always comes back, and it comes back bigger and better than ever. So you have to keep going, you have to keep pursuing, you have to keep taking action until it's clear.
Yeah. And it's amazing, Lisa, because it's funny how actually it's like a like the credit and deficit in your bank account nearly, isn't it? Because it's like, I know for myself as well, when you deny, it's like you're minusing your bank account. Is getting lower and lower and lower. Your self-esteem is going lower and lower. Your own self-respect is going lower and lower and lower and lower. Apart from if you actually start, when you hear the guidance and you take that action step, then it gives you confidence. Like you're putting money in the bank, you're investing in yourself. And then you put another, you listen and you act again, you listen and you act again, you listen, you act again. And that's actually when you're actually building your investment in your own self-esteem, and your own self-worth, and your own when it's your own self-care, really. Because I was thinking about that today. Is it like, to love yourself is like actually a really huge jump, because a lot of us don't even understand what that is. But if we were to start talking about like what, we're like, well, we can understand care. Let's start small, really
self-care,
small.
Yeah.
Care, just care, not even self-care, just care. If I was to care about myself, would I take that step? And like, it doesn't have to be loud. It's very silent. It's like this silent revolution that I often talk about. And that's I think what I'm talking about, the title of my next book, Silent Revolution, because I think that's what really we will all evolve if we start to listen to that silence, and you have to create that space for silence to drop in, and then it'll give you the guidance. And then the more you move into that realm of following the guidance, you'll find yourself moving out of that situation and becoming empowered, Lisa, isn't it? And
I think that's self-allegiance, right? That's self-allegiance. And I just wanted to go back and talk to you about what you mentioned before. It's like, when you have an intuition in your body as a woman and you speak up and your partner denies it and and actually will totally disagree and, and give an excuse why that's not true. That is the worst thing that can ever happen, because time after time, you don't even realize that you're intuitive anymore. And that was one of the things that happened to me. It was like I would speak my intuition, but because, especially with gambling, it's very hard to admit, like it is an illness, right? So there's no judgment there. It's very hard for the gambler to actually be completely honest. They can't be, because there's so much shame and there's so much feeling for them around it. So they can't put their cards on the table. So here you are intuitively talking about this, and there they are denying it because of the shame and all the other feelings that they have around their behavior. And so then you doubt your own intuition. And that, for me, that was massive, because I'd only started to use my intuition, right? So this is like a long time of actually not even really knowing myself. And then my body's actually telling me this stuff. And then I'm going, oh, well, I must have been wrong. I must have been wrong.
That's wonderful, because actually I'm just so important, because I think also like the intuition and the love of the other person sounds like, it gets mixed up, because you're wanting to, women, we love to love, we love to care, we love to nurture, and we want to do that. We want to do that. We want to help, our partners, our children, everything. But, it's trying to get that love in right relationship, so that really, if you were to look at, if you're going to truly love somebody, you have to follow that guidance and to actually pull them out of denial as well, because you're enabling their behavior, which isn't helping them, and it's not really loving them. True love, true love there is kind of helping them to see where they are imbalanced, and there is
and actually the times that I really stood in my intuition, like there were a couple of times that I went, no, I know that there's something going on. They were the times that actually gave the other person the freedom to actually then be able to admit, and to actually, they then had to start sharing, so it is true. That's exactly true, Carolyn. So in loving myself enough to stand in my intuition, I'm actually doing the loving thing for them as well.
It's so courageous to do, though, because it's like you're coming out of denial helps them come out of denial, where if not, you're both in the darkness and you're staying in that dynamic, and it's only just going to go downhill, because health will go downhill, the family, the finances, like you said. And I just, in the description as well, it's so important as well to kind of highlight how difficult that is, like, because like you say, it takes time with alcoholism and a lot of other addictions, but with gambling, money can be lost so fast, and like, livelihoods gone, homes gone, your security is gone, can be gone so fast, so quickly, and with no time to, with no notice, and it's very frightening,
And we can't afford not to act, which is why I wanted to talk tonight about this, because when I look back and I think I was actually probably quite lucky, but I know a lot of women and even men that have not been so lucky. You cannot afford not to act. If you have a feeling, then you protect everything that you can protect, and you start to get help, and you keep at it. You just keep at it, because the alternative of keeping trusting and keeping not saying anything, and because you want to support them, and not actually keeping on that path of action, the alternative is just absolutely frightening. So it's a big call to actually step into your power, especially as a woman that may have had a lot of those dynamics of relationship where standing up to the man might have been a bit challenging. But if you keep thinking of the alternative, I think it's really, get help. I would just really strongly suggest that if you're in that situation, get help and take action, and don't stop taking action.
That's amazing, Lisa. And just actually to give people a tip, I'm just, thinking back to what Nadia said as well about younger women starting relationships with men and maybe seeing something, not being aware of, or maybe like we were talking about intergenerational patterns. So say, for example, if a young woman in her 20s, whatever, has met somebody and is in a relationship, and she has this in her background, maybe her father or her grandfather or something had the same type of energy, the same type of way of being in the world. So she's attracted to that again because that's comfortable for her. What would you say to somebody like that who's just starting off in a relationship? And what are the signs that maybe she might be unconscious of that she's not seeing, but feeling before she gets into marriage and before she starts a committed relationship or moving in with them or whatever? What would you say to a young woman starting off, like, if it was yourself starting off in a relationship? What are the red flags?
That's such a great question. So I believe that moving into any relationship is a call for us to be allegiance to ourselves first and foremostly. And we'll see red flags, and a lot of women I work with, they see red flags, but they ignore them because they want to be loved and they want to feel secure. Please love yourself more than that. If you see a red flag, question it, because there are always red flags. Some of the things that I saw really early on were the fact that there was no assets. There was nothing that had shown any sort of accumulation of assets. There was a carelessness with money. There was a lot of money, when we started to share bank accounts, a lot of money coming out and no explanation for where that might have gone to. But, like an explanation, but not an accurate explanation. It was just really vague. So, and you'll feel it, right? There's a feeling that comes with it, which surprises me even now. You can feel it energetically, this leaking out of your sort of whole field or your system. So those sorts of things, like going out at night, always being out at night, but you'll see the red flags. And really it's just, how much do you love yourself? How much are you actually going to stop and look at that and face that reality? Because as you said before so beautifully, Caroline, life is giving us information all the time through our feelings and through what turns up. We are being informed. Whether or not we listen to them has a lot to do with our unconscious conditioning and the feelings and the insecurities that we have. But if we have the guts to actually really stop and listen and look, we really will end up a lot more happier in the long run.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Lisa. And it's so important, because I'm just thinking there when you said that about the red flags, and also, if you were to see the red flags in a relationship like that, and if you're listening to this, what are the practices that a young girl, if she sees the red flags, to me, that's a sign that I'm in a relationship that isn't, I'm entering into a relationship that maybe might not be healthy. So that is a red flag to me, that maybe there's something in me that needs to be healed. So what are the practices that this woman will have to, this young woman should start doing to get herself healthy enough to be attracting a healthy partner to her?
Yes. Yeah, great question. First of all, can I just say that in almost 99.9% of times that I've been working with women, they race into the relationships. They throw themselves in so fast. They move in with a partner within 6 months, which is just not enough time to really get to know somebody. So first thing is, go slowly. And when things activate you, use it as a tool to actually see what's going on in you. Why am I here? Why have I chosen this particular partner? If I'm being activated, what is it in me that is here feeling this in this moment? So for me, it's a constant, it's almost like I've got one eye looking out at the world, but I've got the other eye looking in at myself, and I'm trying to live like that. So it's a state of self-inquiry. And if you give yourself enough time to pause, like especially when you've got a reaction coming on, if you can give yourself a moment just to go, okay, take a breath. This is an opportunity for me to see something in me that needs to be healed. And which is amazing, because if I can use this as an opportunity to heal a part of me, then my relationship is going to be so much more fulfilling. So you're using every moment that you're activated and you're inquiring, what is it in me that needs to be healed? Why did that upset me? And you're looking at your own behavior the whole time, and you're feeling your body. Does it feel good? If it doesn't feel good, then there's something that's going on that you have to check out. It doesn't feel good. I feel uncomfortable, or I don't feel like I'm being valued, or I don't feel like I'm being heard, or I don't feel like I'm being supported. Yes, they could be things in you, but why are you in that situation? Like, take a step back and just inquire. Be aware of how your body feels, because I think we've lost this connection with our body, and our bodies give us so much information. Our feelings give us all the data we need if we just keep paying attention.
That's beautiful, Lisa. And just actually on the value in your own body and on valuing your femininity, valuing the capacity for you to love as well, I think is huge, because like women just love to love. Like, we love to nurture, we love it. We just want to do that. It's innate in us. But I think that conscious choice making is really where our power is, because if we can kind of hold ourselves, even like to hold our power in our body and know our own and bring it back into ourselves. So we have this kind of like nearly regal sense of ourselves, that we value ourselves so much that we're going to put all our effort and energy into discernment, use our minds. We have massive hearts, but we have to use our discernment to really evaluate the choices that we're making with our partners, because this is really the foundation for the rest of your life. The foundation for the rest of your life, because once you get into a relationship, once you have children, once you're like down the road and you're finding these things that you've known it from the start, but it, like you said, it escalates and escalates and becomes a bigger problem, and hard
they don't go away.
Pedal backwards. So it would be amazing for like women might be listening to us that have daughters, or to have teens, or anyone to be aware of that, and to start practicing, I think, that in themselves, even middle age or whatever age, to pulling that back in and really kind of that regal queen-like energy, that we understand the power, the fact that we hold this beauty, and we hold this intelligence, and we hold this compassion and care, but we also want to be careful where we spend it. Where are we going to spend it? What shop are we going into? Where are we going?
But also the value, right? Self value. And I think this is really valuing. That's right. And because we deserve it, like our worth, and this is something that, the older I've become, the more I really focus on that, is my worth, and asking myself those questions. Like, 3 years ago, I remember going on a date with this guy, and he was so unclear. Like, he was just sort of, I could feel his lack of clarity, and I thought, he's in other relationships. I could just feel it. And I thought, why would I even hang out with you? Why would I even spend my time with you? And that just ended it for me. But once upon a time, I never would have asked myself that question, because I would not have valued myself that highly. But it's really up to us. It's like, we don't deserve to be kept in the dark. We don't deserve to be lied to. We don't deserve to be cheated on. We don't deserve to have all these things happen to us. But it's up to us to actually claim that space for ourselves. It's up to us to say we do not deserve it, and we are worth more than that. And I think that is where, when you talk about discernment, that is where our discernment has to come in. It's like consciously watching ourselves, consciously watching what we tolerate and what we accept, and consciously choosing not to accept those things that are an insult to the magnificence that we are.
Because there are men out there as well that have done that work and have invested themselves in becoming this kind of conscious co-creators, with life, and that are deserving of your love and are deserving of all of that you have to give, and that you will only be an asset and they'll be an asset to you, you know. So, you know, we look at love as commodity like that. Like that's the hugest asset and investment you can give as somebody is to give yourself, you know. And it's to see it like that, because I suppose we're maybe conditioned to think that that's what relationships are, but that's not the truth, you know. Like the truth is relationships should be uplifting, making you feel good, making you feel empowered, giving you you know, being able to be yourself, not having to be play small, being able to, you know, express yourself in the fullest version of who you are, you were born to be, and that somebody can ignite that in you as well. Not just, you know, that they fuel and feed that. It's not that you need them, but you want to be with them, and you choose that because you enjoy them and you enjoy their company and they enjoy your company, you know. And it's just, it's a different, it's a complete asset to your life. And I think what you said earlier as well, I just think it's a brilliant point about how you, I think, in your journey have increased your intuition. So what happens then, I noticed as well, it's like the powers of feminine force, the powers of the feminine force we talk about, if we want to frame that as being intuition, becomes so keen that actually you can't be fooled, because you can read energy as if you're reading a book. They might be telling you one thing, but you're like, sorry, I know. I actually can read your, like I call it, your soul identity. I can read it. I can read it. I know more about you than you know about yourself. You know, you know, it's like you just get this sense of them, you know, and that's a huge power, because, you know, you can discern again then, what does that fit with you, does it not, you know, because there's a flavor to that. And I think that flavor needs to be complementary, you know. You know the way, like in food, there's certain things, you know, that complement each other, and often they're contrasting, and that's what we love, you know, sweet and sour, or, you know, the salty and the sweet, like sweet caramel, or, you know, salty caramel or something like that. Sometimes it just drives you mad, because it's like, oh, I love both, but they go so well together as well, but you're so, you know, that kind of thing. So it's kind of, I feel like there's a certain flavor combination that's very powerful, and very powerful in the world. And I think to go beyond what we think relationships are now, and to evolve into this new type of, you know, kind of, I suppose, evolved true relationships is so exciting, because it's also showing people the gold standard of what can be, you know.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think that's where we're headed. That's where we're headed, girls.
Yeah, exactly.
But we do need to stand in our own power to come into right relationship with others, because we need to be in right relationship with ourselves. And, you know, the great thing is that you only need to do it once or twice. You only need to back yourself once or twice, and it just gets so easy to back yourself. It gets so easy, you know, and you become so much more, don't you, become so much wiser in it, and you get the words for it. So really, it's only, you know, the first couple of times it's a little bit, but it gets really easy after that.
Yeah, keep at it.
Well, Caroline, such a great conversation.
Really was. And thank you so much for sharing you know, about your personal journey, you know, because I think that really connects with people, because, you know, none of us are perfect, but even though we talk about it on these shows, I know, and I think that's really important to say as well, like that we're always, you know, in this, you know, path of self-discovery and archaeology, and this is how we bring the content, is because we're doing that work, and we're reflecting on our own lives and our, you know, our line, our family line, and trying to understand and trying to move past that, and give people the tools to be able to move past that as well, so that we can have this much richer society for the next generations, and for now as well. So thank you so much for listening.
You're welcome, Caroline.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing, Lisa. And I hope you enjoyed this, and, you know, like and share with people who might be interested in listening to this conversation as well, you know, because we're really, we'd love to get more people involved, and your comments, and watching on the replay. If you want to leave any messages or comments, we'd be delighted to come back to you on that personally. Wouldn't we, Lisa?
Absolutely. We'd love to have you as part of our conversations. So we look forward to seeing you again on Wednesday night. We have a guest coming talking about women of influence in the world. And thank you once again for joining us, everyone. It's great to have you here.
See you on Monday.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.